Hey, I'm doing a video on Jonathan Bernier, the guy whose knowledge of Nelson Mandela is lower than the amount of shots he's let in from center ice. No, but seriously, this guy's let in so many bad goals that there is a YouTube video called Bad Goals Bernier dedicated to him. Anyways, in this video I wanted to talk about Jonathan Bernier's stint with the Toronto Maple Leafs and how it kinda turned downhill and went way worse than anyone expected it to. So I'm gonna give you guys a timeline of the Jonathan Bernier era in Toronto.
A crazy bounce by Jonathan Bernier, and the power play goal ties the game at 1.
On June 23rd, 2013, the Toronto Maple Leafs acquired Jonathan Bernier from the LA Kings for Ben Scrivens, Matt Fradden, and a 2015 second-round pick. That second-round pick ended up being Travis Dermott, but the Leafs got it back in a future trade. At the time of the trade, Ben Scrivens and Matt Fradden both were viewed as kind of young players that could be something, but they were big question marks. And we all know how they turned out now today. And Jonathan Bernier was a former first-round pick, 11th overall in the 2006 draft by the Kings, and he was playing great as a backup to Jonathan Quick in LA, but he really wanted to become a starter and get more playing time. So they traded him. Right after the trade was announced, there was a lot of backlash from Maple Leafs fans, including myself, for good reason, because the Maple Leafs have just come off a 2013 playoff appearance where they lost in 7 games, had that colossal Game 7 collapse that we never talk about. But it was a good season for Maple Leafs standards at the time, as they had good offense, and they had good goaltending in James Reimer. So what does the GM go out and do? He acquires another goaltender. Like, what the hell, Dave Nonis? This team's defense was just a bunch of orange pylons wearing blue and white Maple Leaf sweaters running around on the ice doing absolutely nothing, as shown in the Game 7 versus Boston. And you do absolutely jack all to improve that and instead acquire another goaltender. Let me just say, I am so glad we're out of that horrible Maple Leafs era where we were passing around coaches and GMs like it's a game of hot potato. To help prove my point, to show that Leafs fans really did not like this trade, let's take a look at some of the comments on Steve Dangle's video about Jonathan Bernier coming to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, now the first 32 shots don't matter. These are 2 terrible goals. The first one's a bad break.
In Bernier's first season in Toronto, he actually had a decent season. He started off the year splitting starts with James Reimer, but by the end of the season he was the undisputed #1 goalie in Toronto. In 55 games played, he went 26, 19, and 7 for 1 shutout, a 2.69 goals against average on a .923 save percentage. He played 0 playoff games in the 2014 playoffs because the Leafs missed the playoffs that year. Throughout the season, Bernier was mostly pretty decent but was a little inconsistent at times, which raised a little bit of a red flag, but nothing too major at the time. Overall, Bernier's first season in Toronto gained a little bit of trust from some fans, but a lot of the fan base was still attached to James Reimer.
That's Pacioretty to the net, back and he scores!
Coming into the 2014-15 season, there was high expectations placed on Jonathan Bernier to really blossom into the Leafs' #1 goalie. Unfortunately, that never happened. Bernier took a considerable step back from his previous season's stats, going 21, 28, and 7 in 58 games, posting 2 shutouts, a 2.87 goals against average, and a .912 save percentage. And for the second straight year, the Maple Leafs missed out on the playoffs. This is the season where Bernier really became known for his inconsistency and inability to stop shots from the other team's blue line. And yes, I know, every goalie lets in a bad goal the odd time. I know that from personal experience being a goalie myself, but they were happening all the time to this guy. He was letting bad goals in left, right, and center. Pardon the pun. But yeah, he just did not live up to expectations that season.
This is one blend that you gotta have. Don't you 5-hole went through Bernier.
This was the season where the Maple Leafs basically blew up their entire roster to help out their rebuild. During the season in the NHL, Bernier played 38 games, going 12, 21, and 3 with 3 shutouts, a 2.88 goals against average, and a .908 save percentage. I remember Bernier started out the year rough, man. I'm pretty sure he was hovering around a 900 save percentage in December. Now you may be asking, why am I showing AHL stats? Well, due to his poor play, Jonathan Bernier got sent down to the Toronto Marlies on a 10-day conditioning stint.
Then Bernie will report to the minors for a 10-day conditioning opportunity.
Jonathan Bernier back in the American Hockey League for the first time in 5 years.
Yes, that is right. Jonathan Bernier got sent down to the minors. Both him and the Maple Leafs wanted him to regain his confidence after his shaky start to the season. In 4 games played with the AHL Marlies, Bernier went 3-0-1 with all of those 3 wins being shutouts, a 1.25 goals against average, and a .948 save percentage, showing that he was ready to come back up to the NHL. Bernier finished his conditioning stint with the Marlies and went back up to the Maple Leafs roster. Bernier proceeded to finish the season quite strong after his stint with the Marlies. Despite Bernier's improved play, the rebuilding Maple Leafs still missed the playoffs and finished last in the league. But, due to finishing last in the league, the Maple Leafs won the 2016 draft lottery and picked our golden god, Auston Matthews. Aw, thank you, lottery balls.
The news that just broke in the last 10 minutes, Jonathan Bernier to the Anaheim Ducks for a conditional 2017 draft pick.
That summer, the Leafs identified that they needed a consistent number 1 goalie in Toronto. They lost Reimer at the trade deadline that year, and even though he was a UFA, they didn't really want to sign him because he wasn't really that much of a consistent number 1 goalie. I believe it was at the draft that the Maple Leafs acquired Frederik Andersen from the Anaheim Ducks, and he was without a doubt going to be the number 1 goalie for the next season. Acquiring Andersen made Bernier expendable for the Leafs. They could have kept Bernier as a backup to Andersen for the next season, but that would have been a very expensive goalie tandem, as Bernier still had 1 year left on his contract at just over $4 million. Plus, they also felt like they were ready to move on from Bernier. So, on July 8th, 2016, the Maple Leafs traded goaltender Jonathan Bernier to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for a 2017 conditional draft pick. Now, to my knowledge right now, I don't really know what happened to that 2017 draft pick because there was a lot of confusing conditions on it. This trade marked the end of the Jonathan Bernier era in Toronto. Now, some of you may ask, how has Jonathan Bernier been since the trade out of Toronto? Well, to be fair, on Anaheim, Colorado, and now Detroit, he's been pretty average. He's been okay. Nothing amazing, but not terrible. But there's, yeah, he makes some oopsies sometimes still. Oh, I almost forgot. This happened too.
Just wanted to ask you, I mean, obviously Nelson Mandela, one of the most significant historical figures of the 20th century. What knowledge or awareness did you have of him growing up, or when did you learn of him?
Well, obviously growing up, he's one of the most known athletes in the world, and a lot of impact in any kind of sport that he did, and even playing hockey, everyone knows him, right? From being the type of person that he was off the ice and on the ice, and it's so unfortunate that he passed away a year ago. But he changed a lot while he was with us, and he's a tremendous guy.
Good job, Bernier. How about next time you do your research, bud?